Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here on my channel, another book related video. In today's video, we are going over all the books I read in March. And let me just say, it's not necessarily the fact of quality over quantity. I didn't read that many books, but my page count was pretty much the same as January and February, even though I read a couple less books. I had a couple good reads, but then again, I didn't read that many books. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's video. Starting on the 28th of February and ending on the 12th of March, I've picked up the final book in the Hope Beach trilogy by Colleen Cobble. This is Seagrass Pier. I went into this book having a little bit of doubts because of the second book. It just wasn't necessarily my favorite. I was a little disappointed in the last book, but going into this book, I ended up loving it. I love the two main characters. I love the mystery in it. I love the relationship, the friendship building, and then the subplot of romance. I just felt like these characters were so much better than the last ones, and I'm honestly not mad how I felt while reading the series. I felt like it was good to have a really great book for the first book, maybe a kind of disappointment book in the middle, and then ending it back on a good note. Both of the things I highlighted in here were Christian related. This was a mystery story with a subplot of romance, and I rated this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I'm very glad to be done with the trilogy, and I'm glad that I accomplished all of these books and that they're sitting on my bookcase together. I'm very happy with it, and I'm glad that March also started off on a good note. Next, on the 2nd of March, but also it went all the way till the 22nd of March, we have a book that I already got rid of. We went down to Half Price Books, my husband and I, in Lexington, and went ahead and got rid of it there instead of me doing a free little library, because I didn't want to just necessarily let this book fall into the hands of a younger generation who aren't necessarily old enough in my mind to read it. So I did pick up and get rid of A Little Life. For my personal opinion, I don't think that this book should be raved about the way that it is. I've heard so many different sides. I've read so many different reviews. I don't know how much I really want to talk about the book. I went into it more so because I was curious. Nobody ever said specifics about the book, so kind of one of those, the curiosity killed the cats. That was definitely me. I went into it. It was my own fault. I didn't know nothing about the book because nobody would talk about it except for if I wanted spoilers, and I didn't want true spoilers. One of the things I thought about was, because it's called A Little Life, I thought there would be this massive hardship that our main character eventually, after living a great life or just living a normal life, something terrible happened to him, and he would kind of have to overcome that great hardship and learn how to live with it. And instead, this book didn't necessarily go with that. There were some hardships, there were some struggle moments, some characters, some bad things that both the main character and other characters did to either the main character or just in general, but there were so many things that just morally, with my values, Christian values, and just my values in general, I did not like a lot of what went on in the book, especially towards the end. I didn't like how one character, actually, I thought he was kind of a good character until the fact of him cheating. Well, I'm gonna say it was cheating. I don't care if it was an open relationship or not. Some of the things that were going on, I didn't agree with it. There was so much that I wanted to read, like the past, the history of this one life. I wanted to know what happened, but I didn't want to know about the things that other people, when I was reading comments and reviews, raved about. They loved the relationship. I didn't like the relationship at all. Not one thing about the relationship or any of those relationships I thought were really good. I didn't care much for majority of the friendships. I didn't like the settings. I didn't like how it was just a big struggle the entire book, the entire life of this character. In the beginning, like I said, I thought it was going to have a hardship. I was thinking in my mind it was similar to, if you've ever seen the film from 2001 called A Beautiful Mind. That's where a guy is super insanely smart. He's really good at math, but he has schizophrenia. I thought it was something like that. I thought it was going to be an inspiring book that kind of gave me that same feeling, which, I mean, that is my fault. I kind of labeled it as something maybe it wasn't. I'm looking at my review, so I'm kind of reading this and maybe re-talking about some things, but also in my review, I stated how I did not really agree with the genres. I am just saying that this is fiction only. I don't like any of the other genres that people were claiming it to be. I just, one, don't like those in general, but two, I just don't think they really fit compared to just having a fiction type book. I agree with somebody saying that this was similar to like a car wreck where you just can't look away. You just keep reading and keep reading even though you don't want to read it, even though it makes you kind of uncomfortable or just annoyed to read it. And for me, I was getting more of the I'm annoyed, I'm getting tired and bored with all these characters in this writing, and it was so long. It was like 860 pages, I do believe, give or take. It was one of those where I was just upset about reading it every time I would pick it up and read or even listen to it on audio. Reading from the review that the guy left on my review, he basically said how he took the trauma, he compared it to cancer on how it invades somebody's life. He said the other points that you mentioned are definitely important points, but I saw them as side points to strengthen the theme of trauma. Also, I can see how knowing nothing can lead to this kind of review. Had I not known that it was going to be tragic, I would have struggled reading through it as well, since a lot of the book contrasts with my morals. I believe that reading through it as a letter to trauma changes the framework of the read. Not sure if that explains anything deeper, but that that was my take and mindset while reading the book. Oh, and also I thought that the foreshadowing and the world building was pretty good. Me personally, I didn't even notice any world building at all, except for just maybe like bad locations, bad place settings, but not necessarily like it was like a fantasy where we're building a world. I just knew of it as like, you know, you're living in New York or Chicago or this city, those types of places. I could see maybe how it could have been a letter to trauma, but I just don't agree with the book. I didn't enjoy the book. I rated it 2 stars, and I was very, very excited to get rid of it and to finally be done with it. And that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about, because it's one of those also that I've really put far from my mind, and now having to think back on my review, I feel like I had to reread my review to even remember what all I wanted to talk about in this video. And then actually my final book of March, again, it was a long one though, thankfully. We started on the 12th and ended around the 28th. It was actually Indestructible. I did this for a reading vlog that is up on my channel already. It's for a read it or unhaul it video. If you're really curious about this book, go ahead and watch that video. I dive into it a lot more, explain a lot more, and even pull some quotes from here because I underlined a lot of things from this book. I don't know if you can see any of them at all. I had a fun time reading this. There's some amazing stories, just like personal stories, maybe from his childhood or even from his family in general. And then there are some really hard, very informative topics that I think everybody should read about, especially since this is more so for like America, when we got actually into the war after the bombing in Pearl Harbor. And it's just one of those that I think we need to read. We need to be kind of aware of some of the things that happened during the war. I mean, it is a little bit more one-sided, but at the same time, it's good to know. I don't know. I really enjoyed this. I love the little family. I love following the family. You kind of get a little bit of POVs, 2 different POVs. It's more third person than anything. You get PI, the main character, as he's flying during the war. They're pretty much in Philippines, and then his family also gets taken to a concentration camp by the Japanese, or for the Japanese, I guess you could say. So you get a little bit of their point of views in the camp, maybe as one of their daughters becomes a spy. They're smuggling food and other things into the camp. There's like a lot that goes on. Kept me really entertained. There are some spots in it that might read a little bit slow, and then other spots I felt like I was flying through it. I did listen to a lot of this on Audible, a couple hundred pages, just to help me finish it before we ended the month. I rated this one 4 stars, and I do highly recommend this book. Those are all 3 books that I read in March. Not very many books, like I said. Quantity isn't really necessarily there. Page count though is. So let's go ahead and hop over into the statistics. First off, I don't even want to talk about this. So in my reading binder, I have pages that say my physical TBR, books I want to read. I have went thrifting a little bit. I probably picked up about 5 to 10 books or so. And I went from, I don't even know what the last wrap up was, if it was 98. We then went to 109 books, technically, on my physical TBR. Granted, I did finish 15 books in total for the year of 2025. So that brought us down all the way to 94 books out of the 109 books that we have accumulated or that have been on my physical TBR, which is really great. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm supposed to be under 60 by the end of the year, and I keep getting books. And I said I was going to be buying books, and then we went thrifting multiple days, so I don't know anymore. For my 25 books I want to read in 2025, we only tackled 1 book on that list, which was A Little Life. Reading that book did put us at 8 books out of the 25 books, which is really great. At the end of March, I tallied up all the books I've read this year. Like I previously just said, I read 15 books. In March, we read 3 books, but the page count was actually 1,618 pages. My second highest month for pages, but sadly we had 0 5 stars. This month I read 1 mystery, 1 fiction, and 1 history book. So far for the year, mystery is my top genre read, and my favorite book of March was actually Indestructible. Now for the final statistic or page that I want to talk about, I want to talk about my bingo that I have in my reading journal. For March, of course, we crossed off 3 more little squares. First was I finished a series, which was Seagrass Pier. Second was a book with a map, which I just put as Indestructible because that was the only prompt it could have fit that I had left. And finally, we had an award-winning book, and I put that as A Little Life. That gave me actually a bingo. So we have now, going straight up and down, we have turned into a movie or a show, a book with chapter titles, a romance book, an award-winning book, and a 2-word title. That officially is my first bingo for 2025, which I feel like was pretty good. It took 3 months to get there, but we have a bingo. That's all I have for March's wrap up. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you're curious about any reading vlogs, I have my Read It or Unhaul It series that I'm going to be starting. That has already been posted, and then I have a few upcoming videos that I definitely definitely want to get into and definitely do. They might be more so in the later future, in like the next couple months. Also, if you're curious, it is becoming spring and summer, which means car show season. We are actually headed down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee to go to the Rod Run down there at the end of next week. So if you're curious about that, any photography or cars, go ahead and subscribe. Keep up with my channel. I'm so excited for future videos, and I hope to see you in another video here on my channel, and God bless.